This is KGW News at Sunrise.
Good morning. Thanks for getting up with us on this Saturday morning. I'm Tim Gordon. This morning on Sunrise, a presidential stop in Portland. President Biden is set to visit the Rose City next week. The focus of the trip and why it's so rare. Plus, it's one of the latest ridiculous social media challenges, but it can also be dangerous. A Portland couple may have just learned why. But before we get to all that, let's check in with Chris McGinnis for a quick look at the forecast. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Tim. Want to see something cool? Check this out. I'll step out of the way. Well, a little farther. That is the setting moon right there on the left center of your screen there.
How cool.
As the moon, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? I think it was full a couple of nights ago, but in any event, broken cloud cover overhead. Last check at PDX, it's 40 degrees, so another cool morning out there. Waking up to 36 in Beaverton. I should say not as cold as earlier this week, but cool enough. Hillsborough at 34, one of the cooler spots in the immediate Portland metro area. Big picture across the state. Bend right now 28, Burns 32, Baker City 30. We've got snow across a good portion of Oregon, just not in the northwestern corner of the state. Snow showers in the Cascades today and snow across central and eastern Oregon. But here across the northwestern part of the state, we are watching that little weather system offshore, which will eventually bring us some showers, we think, and maybe even a rumble of thunder and some small hail, because we haven't had enough of that this week, right? Temperature-wise, we pretty much stay in the upper 40s, so another day where we are well below average for this time of the year. Your full forecast comes up in just a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Hail, more hail, all right. Well, we start this half hour with a presidential visit to Portland. President Joe Biden will be talking infrastructure investments during a trip to Portland next Thursday. And looking ahead to the stop, our Alma McCarty also took a look back at some other presidential visits to the Pacific Northwest.
From the touchdown of Air Force One,
I think people do love to show up at those kinds of things and see it.
To the speeches, the crowds, the fanfare, even the protests.
People in Oregon care an awful lot about issues. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Presidential visits carry quite a bit of significance in the eyes of political analyst Len Bergstein.
There's still a certain majesty about president and being one of the most powerful people in the world kind of visiting our state to talk about our issues.
President Biden set to talk infrastructure issues and solutions on Thursday in Portland before heading north to Seattle to discuss the clean energy economy.
The West is particularly a nice place for him to come talk about that, because whether it's roads, ports, bridges, or broadband, there are a whole bunch of infrastructure issues that I think he can talk to that will make sense to Oregonians.
Bergstein says Oregon can serve as the setting where presidents discuss substantive issues. He says visits from former presidents Obama and Clinton come to mind.
Obama visited both Nike and Intel, I think, in various different techniques. Clinton came out to talk. I remember very specifically, they organized a full day's summit on timber issues.
Oregon, Portland in particular, also the backdrop of passionate protests, as George H.W. Bush and his administration found in the early 90s.
Bush and Quayle were obviously the focus of things that led them to think of Portland as Little Beirut. In many cases, some Republican presidents would choose to go somewhere else. It would be more welcome for them to be in Medford or Pendleton or some of the non-metropolitan areas.
But compared with other states, those presidential trips can be rare, since Oregon isn't exactly a battleground state.
When they weigh all of the different places that they can go, they want to get to places where they think the outcome of an upcoming election or an upcoming set of issues are in doubt.
And as far as this upcoming visit, details on where in the city that President Biden will be and what time he will visit still under wraps at this point. We will keep you updated as we learn more. Now to the war in Ukraine, where the bodies of more than 900 civilians have been discovered in and around Kyiv following the withdrawal of Russian forces. That's according to the regional police chief there. Meantime, Russia is vowing to renew missile attacks on Kyiv. It comes after the sinking of the Russian warship, the Moskva. It was the flagship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. A senior U.S. official said it was hit by a Ukrainian missile. Meanwhile, relief efforts continue on the Ukrainian border as refugees flee to safety. Catherine Cook spoke with a Portland man who just returned from his second trip to help.
it's just a very chaotic situation in Ukraine right now, and they need as much support as they can get.
Hunter Baldridge isn't asking for something he's not willing to give. The Portland native just returned from his second trip to the Ukrainian border.
So we're on our way to the Polish border. We should be there in about 2.5 hours.
To drive refugees into Poland. He took them to hotels, the train station, and the airport. 65 people this trip, and more than 100 in all, mostly women and children.
A lot of them ask us, why are you helping us? When we tell them where we're from, they're like, you came all the way from America to help us. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And when we were able to give them the money that we got from donations and put that into the hands of the refugees that we transported, some of them would be like, thank you so much. Others would tear up and, give us hugs.
Hunter's friends and family raised $20,000 after his first trip to the border. He's currently a grad student in Spain, but says he couldn't just let the money sit there.
We felt like a lot of these people donated specifically to get this money in the hands of refugees. So we decided, we should go back, do the same thing over again.
On his second trip, as fate would have it, Hunter ran into a man he'd helped before. The man had come from Ireland to take up arms with Ukrainians in battle.
He ended up fighting at the border there, and we transport him out this time. We were able to convince him to leave, and we said, hey, you got to get out of there. You did your time, you helped out as much as you could, but now it's time to get back home, get to your family. And so we were able to convince him to leave, and we gave him, a celebration when he left.
Hunter says it will be a while before he returns to Ukraine. It's time now to focus on his studies.
We're still in school here in Spain.
But he hopes anyone who's able will donate to reputable nonprofits still working in Ukraine. Hunter stays in touch with many of them. They tell him another wave of refugees is coming through after recent bombings in Lviv.
So this definitely isn't over yet.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Well, young musicians in Portland are using their talents to raise money for the people of Ukraine this weekend. The Stand with Ukraine benefit concert will feature classical music by students from the Portland Youth Philharmonic. The money collected at the concert and their GoFundMe account will go to the United Nations Children's Fund. The concert starts at 2:30 Sunday afternoon inside Lincoln Hall on the Portland State University campus. Well, a dangerous trend on TikTok may be behind a recent attack in Portland. The videos on TikTok show teens recording themselves driving around and shooting unsuspecting people with pellet or BB guns. A woman who lives in North Portland says she was walking her dog Tuesday night on Mississippi Avenue. A red sedan pulled up about 20 feet away from them. She says a passenger in the car shot BB pellets at her face, her boyfriend's face, and the dog.
I think my dog and I were hit first. I think that's what happened because it hit me in my cheek on my face right here, and it really startled me.
They may be really small, but if somebody gets hit in the eye, it can be really dangerous.
Now, Portland police have not had reports of any similar cases, but down in Milwaukee last week, 2 kids playing outside were shot at with an airsoft-style gun. Well, a new addition in Vancouver will make grocery shopping a lot more convenient. Coming up next, why the groundbreaking of this new Seasons is such a big deal in the city.